What are the best examples for old corporate greed? Impeding the progress of the internet in the US solely to improve their bottom line. Looking at you, Comcast. Just about everything Comcast does. They charge more and give less. The customer service gets worse, less channels, capped internet. The service just keeps degraded, but the costs keep increasing. I use TWC, but I found that customer service will do pretty much whatever you say, but you have to initiate the dialogue and bish about their service, in a polite manner, because I just feel bad for the actual reps, or else they'll just keep profiting off your laziness/ignorance. 2 times now, I've had a sudden surge in my price. Apparently, my rebate ran out, but they'll always cave under the pressure and give me an even better rebate once I call in. Another time, my service just suddenly went out for an entire week. I got a new router, didn't help, so they had to bring someone out during my work hours. Of course, I was told they would be compensating me for all this hassle and lost service. When I got the bill, not only was it my standard rate, but they also added a service call charge for the truck coming out. I called in, bished, again politely, even suggesting they should compensate me the hour of work I missed. The poor app ended up slashing my price for the month to basically nothing. Again, they will duck you, but only if you refuse to stand up for yourself and just lay there with your panties at your ankles. Not a very ideal business model for the customer, and I don't respect these companies, but you just have to be firm with them. And, no, for the last time, I don't give a shit about TV and phone, and I don't actually believe your name is Greg. There are a lot of infuriating examples in this thread, but I'd argue the worst cases are those which are harder to see. Many products are designed specifically to be more expensive to repair and easier to break, simply to force a customer to buy a new one sooner than they might have needed to. The amount of waste, both environmentally and economically, from this type of practice, taken in aggregate, is staggering. In practice, even though the GDP might be higher, it does not help the economy because the money does not go as far on inferior products. The amount of resources wasted, the pollution created, and the labor misallocated are all costs we pay, and all for a worse economy. But it will continue to happen so long as it is in each company's best interest to hide the true cost per use from consumers to artificially inflate the number of units they sell, even as they as companies spend more than they need to, because they need to buy goods from other companies doing the same underhanded trick. In the 90s, corporate greed combined with political greed to effect one of the greatest scams ever. 1. President Clinton and Speaker Gingrich agree on welfare reform that creates workfare. TLDR, if you want to get welfare you have to have a job. 2. Employers, namely Walmart, figure out that they can pay employees less because the government will make up the difference between their pay and a living wage. I say figure out, because they helped write the law. 3. Minimum wage gets parked at roughly half of living wage. Today the living wage is roughly $15 an hour. Federal minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. It just so happens that if you qualify for welfare/WIC/AFDC/SNAP your benefits come to about $8 an hour. What has happened is that businesses like Walmart have offloaded a huge portion of their payroll to the public. In 2014 a Forbes article, hardly a bastion of liberal thought, estimated the cost at $6.2 billion for Walmart alone. And to add insult to injury, 18% of all SNAP, food stamps, benefits were spent at a Walmart. In other words, they not only profit by paying their employees so little they have to get public assistance, they make a profit on the assistance provided. Walmart is the largest private employer in the country, so they have a disproportionate impact on the overall labor market, and because their wages are low, the wages for the entire retail sector had lowered. In 1993 I got paid $8.75 an hour plus commission at Dillard's. In current dollars that's $14.35 an hour. I average $150 a pay period in commission, adding roughly $2 an hour, or roughly $17 total in current dollars. Today that same job at Dillard's is $9 an hour plus commission. but the commission structure almost guarantees little or no payment. And of course none of this takes into account the tax breaks Walmart and other businesses routinely extract from local and state governments. Comcast trying to charge me 14 months in a year. Every 5 months or so, Comcast will push my billing date ahead by about 2 or 3 weeks, expecting me to pay it earlier or cutting off my services for delinquent payment. Whoa, is this for real? Yes. They do it to me more than twice a year. They've even cut us off, then wanted a restoral fee because they decided to move the billing date forward or back a week. Report them through the FCC complaint process. It will get escalated to a special Comcast group, and you can easily force them to stop and give you back any money they shouldn't have charged. If they won't work with you, tell the FCC that they're not cooperating. The FCC checks in on the resolution of all complaints. Source: I just had to do this because Comcast was refusing to activate a modem I owned, even though it was compatible. It still didn't get activated, but they did reimburse me for the cost of the new modem that I was forced to buy. My wife's Hyundai has a remote start function, but you can't just use a key fob to use it. You have to pay them an annual subscription for BlueLink and use their smartphone app to start the car. Also, it's not included in the base rate for BlueLink, but rather in the upgraded package. It's several $100s per year. Nestle was under an enormous boycott in the 1970s/80s because of the baby formula scandal. In short, Nestle would go into poor countries and offer free formula in hospitals, which was no longer free once you left the hospital with your baby, and you'd no longer be lactating, so you'd be forced to buy it. But the water in poor countries is often not good and dangerous for infants to consume for their formula, plus often mothers would cut the formula to make it last longer, and thus their babies wouldn't get enough nutrients, etc. Also, Nestle could make a profit in the face of a normally free and safe source of milk for infants, that is breastfeeding. Add in the privatization of water stuff with Nestle and I think they're a great poster child all around for this question. And let's not forget Nestle, through their CEO, stating that access to water should not be a public right, and their controversies with extracting water regardless of the impact it has on local communities, because it's all about profit. Also the fact that Nestle recently just admired to child labor in Thailand while fighting a child labor suit at the Ivory Coast. Nestle is the #1 company I avoid buying any of their products. My boss was facing a £3,000 bill to renew a safety license for our in-house cafeteria. He decided to close it instead, immediately firing the 2 kitchen staff, and 50 other staff losing all meal options. A week or two later, he then blows £30,000 on a marketing campaign he was repeatedly told would fail, and we wouldn't recoup a single penny of the money spent. It was a total waste of time. He thought it was worth trying anyway. Totally doesn't mind wasting money away, and can afford to, but won't spend a penny on staff if he doesn't have to. Can't quite figure it out. Sounds like the owner of a fast food company I worked for. He never fixed or replaced broken things, paid as low wages as humanly possible, and cut hours left and right. Yet he couldn't figure out why almost all his workers were criminals and pillheads, or why he was losing money because of quality issues. My company went public a few years back. CEO announces that there will be no raises that year, to ensure a good report for our investors. However, there will be bonuses. Hey, alright, cool. If you don't understand why this is shady, it's because executives mostly only get paid in bonuses and stock. So he and his pals all cleaned up, made a few mil, got a few 100,000 stock options. Sure, we as regular employees also got a handful of shares, 50 or less, and an okay bonus, think 5% of salary. However, we as regular employees rely more on raises to keep our future net worth going, as that small bonus is a drop in the bucket compared to what they got, long term. And, friends, this is how every public company is run. Welcome to the fun. UK Home Secretary Theresa May is busy trying to force police forces into privatising core functions, like control rooms, custody detention facilities, by reducing funding. Her husband is a major shareholder in G4s, so she stands to gain massively if G4s wins lucrative police contracts. Somehow this isn't a conflict of interest and she is allowed to get away with it. Worked at Enron as first job out of college. In 2000 we were all called to a meeting and were strongly advised to take our end of year bonuses in Enron stock. Knowing that a splurge of buys would drive up the price, key executives had standing sell orders in place that triggered on a certain price. The take the stock instead of the bonus event triggered the higher price, and the executives got to liquidate their soon to be worthless stock. To top it, they raided our 401,000 and left us all devastated. The real genius at Enron was Lupai. Lupai ducked a stripper and came clean to his wife. At the divorce, the judge ordered him to liquidate his stock to satisfy his financial obligations in the settlement. So he cashed out $250 million months before everything fell apart and didn't have to face insider trading charges because the judge made him do it. I worked for WorldCom when the walls came down and the whole scandal happened with Bernie Ebbers. Not 10 minutes after that scandal happened, the VP of sales flew out to my office and straight out asked me which of my large customers they could get away with overbilling. I told him I'd have to think about it, but my customers were typically structured in a way that they would notice if their bills had any variance to them. This was not true. I had a dozen customers who were excellent candidates for overbilling, but I wasn't about to wreck my reputation in the industry for these greedy bastards. A couple of months later, 3 of my customers called me complaining that their bills were wrong. It was blatant too. They had a huge dollar line item added to their bill with no description. All 3 of them were cool about it because they knew I would fix it. And I did. I looked into some of my other large customers, and they were overbilled too, but they hadn't noticed it. I had those fixed too.